this question. When you buy a pair of motorcycle gloves, how long do you expect them to last? I think a pretty reasonable estimate would be about, 30,000 miles. If you can get 30,000 miles out of a pair of gloves, you're probably getting a good pair of gloves. You're probably doing it right. I don't like to estimate gear use in terms of years because people are like, I've got 16 years on this jacket. Like, I've literally heard this in the dealership. And turns out they ride absolutely nothing for mileage. So, with that said, these are the REV'IT RSR2 gloves. I picked up a set of these gloves at my local REV'IT dealership, which unfortunately isn't my own dealership I work at. And unfortunately, they don't give discounts. This is Scuderia in San Francisco. They don't give discounts to industry guys, which is kind of a pain. If they walked into my shop, I would absolutely give them a discount. Whatever. Maybe they don't want to lose their job. I don't totally blame them, but at the same time, that's kind of bad practice on the manager's part. So with that out of the way, these gloves, I really want to love them. I really do. They're pretty much everything I want in a glove. Nothing more, nothing less. And they just don't stay together. That's my biggest complaint with these gloves, and you're going to see that's pretty consistent across the board with REV'IT gear, at least in my experience. When you go online and you go look at a pair of these, the reviews are kind of all over the place. They're either 5-star and they're like, these are excellent, or they're about, 2 out of 5-star. And people are like, the stitching blows out. And I'm having that issue with my second pair of gloves. After the first pair, the stitching came apart on this index finger. And now on this pair, let me throttle lock this a little bit, this stitching is coming apart. So, I've only been wearing these gloves for about 2 months. The first pair of gloves I had, I commuted for 1 week. I probably put 100 miles on the gloves before they began to fall apart. That is totally unacceptable in my opinion. And REV'IT quality control is kind of shit. The stitching on these is absolutely the biggest downfall of these gloves. Now let's go over some of the other features of this glove that don't suck. It's a full gauntlet, which I personally really like. I'm a full gauntlet guy because I like the extra added safety. I don't like having gaps between my gloves and my jacket. I'm a little bit of a freak in that sense. I know a lot of people don't care about that. They want short gloves. It's hot weather. They don't want all that. I get it. Personally, I want full gauntlets all the time. Rain or shine, hot or cold. Now, with that being said, these are pretty thin gloves. They're thin leather, a cowhide leather, not anything crazy, not kangaroo. But for about $150, you'd kind of expect them to be a slightly better leather. In terms of protection, you have a little bit of padding on the actual cuff itself. You've got these 2 straps that kind of keep everything together. You've got a huge knuckle protector, hard knuckle protector, which I kind of believe in. A lot of people are like, what are you doing, punching walls? But what it does is if you're sliding on your back, it keeps your whole hand off the ground, which you don't, obviously, like as much as you possibly can, protect your hand from being totally mangled up. So I believe in that. And here's my biggest thing, which I feel like a lot of gloves should have, and that's a palm slider. This has a hard palm slider too, not just like sliding material, but that's a hard plastic, like kind of similar to what you would see on like a longboarding glove or something. Sure, you're not putting your hand down and, totally pushing off of it with your longboard or whatever. I don't know how you longboard, sorry. I shouldn't keep using that example. But, it's nice to have if you're on pavement, you go down, even low speed stuff, that keeps your hand from just totally stopping and catching all of your weight and then putting all that energy straight into your wrist. That's a good way to break your wrist. The rest of your arm, whatever. I mean, it just doesn't seem like a good idea to not have it. in a glove if you're wearing gloves for protection. A lot of people are minimalists. They just like a super light glove, especially for around town. Again, that's your choice. My choice is as much protection as possible when it makes sense. So, the palm slider is totally out of the way in terms of when you're holding the grips on your bike. I only really notice them when I'm using a cramp buster on my throttle. Just because it's, it sits against the cramp buster, the plastic against plastic, whatever, not a big deal. Overall, I think they're totally out of the way. I don't find them to be intrusive. But the palm slider thing, so if you go down on pavement, instead of just putting all the energy into your wrist, it slides your wrist away from the pavement. That's where the full gauntlet helps too. With that, your arm is sliding on the pavement. The gauntlet keeps the material of your jacket in place. It doesn't slide up your jacket material, at least hopefully not unless you catch it. Yeah, I mean, you totally save your wrist. So for me, I like that idea. My brother has a pair of racer gloves, which I initially was thinking about, but didn't want to spend $230 on a pair of gloves, which I'm kind of regretting not doing because now these things are totally falling apart. And they have a warranty, but I have the same exact hours essentially as the other motorcycle dealership I got these gloves at. I've already returned a pair. They don't want to see my face. I really don't want to see their face, to be honest. I gotta change my review on their Google review thing. But regardless, these gloves are okay. If I really had to give them a rating out of, like, let's say 10 stars, or, it doesn't have to be stars, it's kind of lame. I'd give it a solid 4 out of 10, maybe a 5 out of 10. If these things seriously stay together, I'd give them a 9 out of 10. The only thing they really lack otherwise is a little bit of ventilation. They're not like a Gore-Tex lined glove or anything. They're not waterproof. I specifically didn't want something like that so that they breathe a little better. But, all they have for perforation is just like right on the fingers on the inside, which you really don't get to. So, your hands are around the grips all the time. You don't really get any airflow in there. So, in the hot weather, they do become a little hot, especially if you get black gloves and black gear like me, like an idiot. So, that's something to consider. But, for the most part, I would not recommend these because you're going to buy a pair of gloves. You're going to ride for a week. They're going to split apart. Even if that, I think there's a review in REV'IT that's like, as soon as I put my hands in these, they split, and I totally believe that. So, for what it's worth, these gloves could be really nice, but they're not. So, I would skip on these. If you're looking at the same kind of criteria in terms of gloves, absolutely look at the racer gloves. They have a really good line of gloves. They also use kangaroo leather, which, as much as I hate the idea of killing kangaroos for leather, it's a much safer leather for you to wear and much more durable. So, thanks for watching the review, and thanks for watching people cut in front of me when I'm lane splitting. Okay, take care, everyone. That was a little close.